Elbaf was completely engulfed in chaos. Dream monsters created by Kirin Gomu poured out from everywhere, and twisted beings emerged one after another from the collective nightmares of the giants. Mixed among them, Imu's demon army was ruthlessly slaughtering people across the land. From the highest point, Imu quietly looked down upon it all. Then, an order was issued to Dori and Bragi: kill Yururu. He's the most powerful man in Elbaf right now. If he is gone, Elbaf will belong to the world government. Soon, the demonic forces surged toward Yururu. Yururu and his soldiers fought desperately, but the enemy's numbers and power were overwhelming. Among the demon army, there even appeared the figure of Killingham, who had transformed into a demon. Each of his strikes possessed the power of a meteor, and no other giant warrior could withstand them. Yururu was driven into a corner, his body already stained with blood. Dori and Bragi raised their weapons high at the same time, preparing to deliver a fatal blow to Yururu. At that moment, a figure lunged forward at incredible speed, forcibly deflecting the trajectory of the attack. It was Zoro. Zoro swung his sword, pushing Dori and Bragi backward in one motion. Immediately after, Hadrudin and his companions, who had already returned to Elbaf, appeared. At the sight before them, they froze. Dori and Bragi had transformed into demons. Hadrudin gasped, shouting in a trembling voice, "Dori! Bragi! Wake up! It's me, Hadrudin!" But his cry fell on deaf ears. There was no light of reason in their eyes, only pure destructive will. Hadrudin, realizing the situation, gritted his teeth, "Lord Yururu, leave this to us." Sensing the situation, Zoro stepped forward with his sword drawn. "Go. I'll hold them off here." And so, Zoro and Hadrudin remained, throwing themselves into battle against the demonized Dori and Bragi. Meanwhile, Sanji, who had already returned to Elbaf, felt an ominous premonition that clenched his chest. He pricked up his ears and faintly heard Robin's cry. "Robin-chan." Sanji's expression changed instantly. Before his eyes, the Straw Hats, led by Robin, were bound tightly by grotesque vines created by Summers. Sharp vines coiled around them, leaving them completely immobilized. At the sight of this scene, Sanji's anger exploded. He slung Judge over his back, kicked the ground without hesitation, and charged straight towards Summers with the sound of cutting wind. "Wait for me, everyone. I'm coming to save you right now." His flame-infused kicks raced toward the despair that bound his comrades. The scene returned to Loki and Luffy. Right after the battle at Dragult, Loki's body was wrapped in light and transformed into a giant dragon. Luffy jumped onto his back without hesitation, and Loki, in his dragon form, spread his massive wings. The two soared powerfully into the sky, heading for Elbaf. Before long, the land of Elbaf came into view. But as they drew closer, the scene turned into a nightmare. Everywhere, mountain-sized, misshapen monsters rampaged, destroying towns and the earth indiscriminately. Loki gasped, unable to believe his eyes. It was the first time in his life he had seen Elbaf invaded. Clenching his teeth in frustration, he muttered, "Damn it. I couldn't stop it after all." The two hurried toward the center of the battlefield, where the chaos was most intense. There, they spotted a winged figure floating in the air. It was Imu, using the body of Gunk as a vessel. The moment Imu unleashed his haki, Loki immediately recognized his true identity. It was the same haki he had felt when fighting King Harold once before. Loki's eyes blazed with anger. He gripped his weapon tightly, glared at Imu, and shouted, "So it was you. The being I've been searching for all this time." In the next instant, Loki transformed into a half-dragon form. Dragon power enveloped his entire body, releasing an overwhelming pressure. Clenching Ragnar tightly, he lunged straight at Imu like a meteor. Thunder crackled violently around Ragnar, and Loki swung the massive hammer. This strike contained all the killing intent and hatred he had harbored deep in his heart for years. The next second, Conqueror's haki erupted, and the ground beneath Imu's feet split open with a deafening roar. Caught off guard, Imu reacted too late and was forcefully driven into the ground by the dragon's power and the impact of the blow. Despite his injuries, Imu slowly stood up and murmured softly, "So this is the will of D." In the next moment, black breath wrapped around Imu's body. It was neither anger nor madness, but an alien aura that sent chills down the spine just by touching it. This haki exploded in an instant, sweeping across the entire battlefield. The air grew heavy and oppressive, and the world's colors faded rapidly. Loki did not stop. Still wrapped in dragon power, he charged at Imu again. However, his attack was completely halted midair. The thunder dissipated, and countless cracks ran across Ragnar. Loki unleashed Conqueror's Haki in retaliation, only to be mercilessly repelled. The impact sent Loki flying violently. Ymir slowly raised his head and declared in a cold, low voice, "Did you really think you could touch me with power like this?" Loki's eyes blazed with rage as he forcibly raised his dragon power even further. Massive wings spread wide, and a raging current of air erupted from his entire body. He swung Ragnar repeatedly, delivering heavy blows powerful enough to tear the land of Elbaf apart, sending shockwaves spreading in all directions. But Ymir did not move an inch. With just a single step forward, Ymir's Haki became an invisible wall, crushing all of Loki's attacks. Then, Ymir simply waved his hand, no flashy techniques, no weapons needed. Jet-black Haki surged forth as a torrent of destruction, striking the dragon form Loki head-on. Loki was sent flying, his massive body rolling across the ground, carving a trench hundreds of meters deep. He struggled to stand, gasping for breath, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Even so, the fire of fighting spirit in his eyes had not been extinguished. Loki did not stop. Still wrapped in dragon power, he charged at Ymir again. However, his attack was completely halted midair. The thunder dissipated, and countless cracks ran across Ragnar. Loki unleashed Conqueror's Haki in retaliation, only to be mercilessly repelled. The impact sent Loki flying violently. Ymir slowly raised his head and declared in a cold, low voice, "Did you really think you could touch me with power like this?" Loki's eyes blazed with rage as he forcibly raised his dragon power even further. Massive wings spread wide, and a raging current of air erupted from his entire body. He swung Ragnar repeatedly, delivering heavy blows powerful enough to tear the land of Elbaf apart, sending shockwaves spreading in all directions. But Ymir did not move an inch. With just a single step forward, Ymir's Haki became an invisible wall, crushing all of Loki's attacks. Then, Ymir simply waved his hand, no flashy techniques, no weapons needed. Jet-black Haki surged forth as a torrent of destruction, striking the dragon form Loki head-on. Loki was sent flying, his massive body rolling across the ground, carving a trench hundreds of meters deep. He struggled to stand, gasping for breath, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Even so, the fire of fighting spirit in his eyes had not been extinguished. "Is that all you've got, Ymir? I will never kneel to you." At the edge of the battlefield, Luffy trembled all over, cold sweat running down his back. He felt the overwhelming difference in strength between the two. Ymir's Haki was not just powerful, it was absolute destruction itself, existing to trample all will to resist. Luffy's eyes widened, his voice trembling, "Haki." The moment Ymir's destructive Haki reached its peak, the sky over Elbaf was enveloped in a terrifying silence. The wind was suppressed, and even Loki's aura was restrained. The dragon power began to tremble uneasily. Ymir slowly raised one hand high. In that gesture lay the absolute authority of one who holds the embers of the world. A cold voice echoed across the battlefield, it was a death sentence already pronounced. "Your resistance ends here." The next second, the sky shattered. The space above Elbaf was torn apart, and a massive black spear emerged from the void. Like a pillar piercing the heavens, the spear was wrapped in dense Haki, shaking the earth just by existing. Watching from afar, Luffy froze, shouting instinctively, "Loki, look out." There was no time to dodge. Ymir swung his arm down, and the massive spear fell at terrifying speed, tearing through the clouds and piercing the ground with a sound of annihilation. The spear penetrated Loki in his dragon form, shattering his scales, his dragon power, and all his defenses as if they were meaningless. The next moment, as if gravity itself had collapsed, Loki's body was dragged violently downward. Boom! He slammed into the land of Elbaf, creating a huge crater, and smoke and dust blotted out the sky. Shockwaves spread in all directions, shaking the entire battlefield violently. Before long, the smoke cleared. The dragon's form was gone. Lying in the center of the deep pit was Loki, returned to his human form. His body was covered in blood, his armor shattered, his breath ragged. The flowing blood dyed the land of Elbaf red. Loki supported himself on the ground with trembling hands, struggling to raise his head. The fire of fighting spirit still burned in his eyes. Gritting his teeth through the pain, he chuckled softly, "Not enough yet." In the distance, Luffy clenched his fist tightly, staring straight at the overwhelmingly powerful being before him, Ymir. At that moment, Emu turned his cold gaze toward Luffy, his lips moving slightly. "Joy Boy, we meet again at last." But Luffy did not understand the meaning of those words. He only knew one thing: the being before him was an enemy who had hurt his friends. Luffy's voice trembled with anger. He gritted his teeth and assumed a fighting stance. The next second, Luffy's body glowed white, and the world distorted. Gear second, activate. Let's go. Transformed into a godlike, free form, Luffy kicked the ground and advanced, using space as a stepping stone. His fists stretched like rubber, changing shape freely as he unleashed a storm of consecutive attacks. But Emu remained unmoved. An invisible force distorted Luffy's attacks, repelling them along with the very space itself. Useless, Joy Boy. A darkness-like shockwave was released, sending Luffy flying and slamming him into the ground. His body was covered in wounds, his breath ragged. Emu slowly raised his hand. "It's over, Joy Boy." Overwhelming power converged, and in the instant before the final blow was about to be delivered. "Not on my watch." With a deafening sound, a figure cut into the battlefield, swinging his weapon and deflecting Emu's attack head-on. Standing there was Loki. "I'm not letting you fight alone." Loki gritted his teeth and stood in front of Luffy. Luffy was surprised for a moment, then grinned. The two stood side by side, staring at Emu at the same time. Haki swirled into a vortex, and the air trembled. This time, they would fight together.